Since 2021, C40 Cities has been working with the City of Accra to implement the Inclusive Climate Action Program. The program's goal in Accra is to strengthen collaboration between the city and the informal waste sector for climate resilience. We focus today on how informal sector workers in environmental sanitation in Ghana can be change agents in the green transition, contributing to waste optimization, activating recycling in the cities, diverting waste from landfills, and ultimately helping to achieve low-carbon development through waste management. Stick and stay with us. When we return after the break, we'll meet our guests. Welcome to Trash Talk. Today we want to talk about informal sector again and their relationship with the Accra Metropolitan Assembly and the Inclusive Climate Action Program. Today on the program I have with me Miss Josephine Agbeko. She's with the C40s program, and then Mr. Victor Kotey, also with AMA, Accra Metropolitan Assembly. You are both welcome to the program.
Thank you.
We want to talk to you, first of all, about the C40s program. What is it about?
Thank you very much for having us. My name is Josephine Agbeko. I work as Inclusive Climate Action City Advisor for the City of Accra, for C40 cities, supporting the City of Accra to implement their Inclusive Climate Action Program. Now, the Inclusive Climate Action Program is a C40 initiative and an effort to ensure that the people who are typically underrepresented but mostly marginalized in climate change issues are drawn to the table of planning, of decision making, to make sure that their views, their perspectives are also prioritized, and eventually they can also benefit from some of the wider impacts of climate change, like climate action, like safeguarded jobs, cleaner communities, cleaner air, better health objectives, decent jobs, etc.
Okay. If you mention, I get the sense that there are a lot more other cities involved in this program. Which other cities are partaking?
That's right. There are a lot more other cities. There are currently 9 cities, including Warsaw in Poland, Barcelona, Los Angeles, and Accra, and then 5 cities in South Africa.
Wonderful. Mr. Kotey, why the decision by the AMA to get involved with the C40s program? Was it a decision? Did you apply for the program? Exactly what happened? How did this marriage happen?
Thank you very much. C40s focus in reducing greenhouse gases. In fact, Accra is a signatory to the Paris Convention. And one of the objectives of the convention is to reduce average increase in global temperature to less than 1.5 degrees. It means the limit of increase should be 1.5 degrees. So Accra, as a signatory, is supposed to implement certain actions to reduce greenhouse emission, ultimately to reduce increase in global temperatures. And the C40's focus in reducing greenhouse gas emission or global temperatures, that makes it impossible or whatever for the AMA to join hands with the C40. In fact, AMA applied to join the C40 cities in 2012, I'm not very sure of the year. Mm-hmm. And since then, there have been no turning back. There have been a lot of support from the C40. One of them is to develop a climate action plan for the city of Accra. And there are some priority actions in the climate action plan that C40 and these organs are helping the city to implement. One of such is the Inclusive Climate Action Pilot that we are implementing now.
Josephine, if you can tell us a bit about why the focus on waste management workers, informal waste management workers, because of all the informality, the informal sector, we have a number of them whose activities contribute to the climate change problem we have on our hands. Why this focus?
Yes. So waste management, according to the latest greenhouse gas inventory that the city did, we found that waste management contributes about 44% of all greenhouse gas emissions, which is very significant. And the other angle to this conversation is also the fact that the informal waste sector constitutes about 30% of all labor force in our city. We know also that they provide very essential waste service delivery to communities. So informal settlement had to reach communities, and mainly
other parts of
and I'm sure we all see them in our communities, and the work they do is very essential, given that they've supported they support to divert waste from landfill. They also support to clean our environment. They are very significant in the city's recycling efforts, etc. The reason why it was important to do this was, first of all, because the city, like Mr. Kotey shared, has prioritized waste management, and waste management is one of the priority actions in the city's climate action plan. And with the backdrop that informal workers provide this essential service, then it is time that we begin looking at who are these informal workers, how far can we support them to continue doing the work that they do, because the truth is there are waste management service delivery deficits that informal waste workers fill, and so then it's important for the city to begin to look there. The final thing I'll add is also that informal workers work in situations that are very precarious. They work really long hours. They work mostly under minimum wage. There's barely any social security, healthcare, etc. And so with the city's interest of improving waste management, then I think it's almost complete if the city considers who else is playing this role in the city, and then so they can build stronger partnerships and collaborations.
So Mr. Kotey, how have we then mobilized the informal sector players in this space, and who amongst, or which of the groups specifically are we dealing with when it comes to this program?
Okay, thank you very much. But the informal actors, waste actors, have been around for several decades. They've been operating in various forms, some as head porters, others using wheelbarrows and other smaller collection equipment. In fact, they became very visible after 2012, when we had a lot of motorized tricycles being imported into the country. So that more or less facilitated their work. And then also, as Josephine mentioned earlier, there are some service deficits as far as waste collection is concerned. Yeah. And this is where the informal actors are failing. In fact, over the years, we attempted preventing them from plying their trade because the city sees them as nuisances because of the way they go about their activity. But I realized we are not winning that war in stopping them. So in 2017, so for once, why don't you listen to these guys? Maybe they are doing something that we are not taking note of. And for all you know, they are collecting waste that hitherto may not be collected by the former waste contractors, because there are places that we cannot access with regular collection vehicles. That's where the informal players come in. For now, as far as the inclusive climate action pilot is concerned, we are looking at all the players in the waste management service chain, both from waste picking, waste collection, informal recyclers, as well as informal innovators. Because, of course, we have innovators also in the informal sector. They utilize plastic waste in coming up with several products like planks and some other things. So the pilot is looking at all these sectors along the service chain.
Well, but that's wide, because if you look at only the space of the innovators, we've had a few on Trash Talk. There are a lot of innovations going on out there, and the financing seems to be a problem. I want to find out how much is being invested in this climate inclusive action pilot project.
That's a really great question, which I can't, unfortunately, answer at this point. What I'd like to emphasize, however, is the fact that what we're focusing on is building really strong partnerships and collaboration. And I like the fact that you said that there's a wide array of informal waste sector workers. Mr. Kotey has helped us explain which people operate in this space. I think what's important is once we create the space, we create the environment for collaboration, then it impacts waste pickers, it impacts informal recyclers, it impacts the aboboyas, the bola taxi and tricycle operators, it impacts informal recyclers, because this relationship building, Mr. Kotey highlighted earlier that there was a period of friction or a period of mistrust, and the city has done some work to begin building that trust. So what we're building a pilot of is the space to engage in dialogue, the space to engage in dialogue, the space to engage in partnerships, etc. And through this, we can first of all find what are the challenges informal sector actors are experiencing. Based on the different types of people here, what challenges are here, and based on the city's resources and the resources of other partners, how can we begin creating solutions to some of these problems that they face?
Apart from what I'm hearing, I'm just hearing dialogue, and I'm hearing a convening of partners. Exactly what are you doing different from the already existing stakeholders?
Yes.
Because they've already, some of them are doing specific things like, supporting the innovation. Some are helping with incubating the ideas. Some are helping with financing. I'm not hearing any of that. Exactly what are you partnering on? Because in the ecosystem, we have so many people or so many institutions doing this, perhaps not even directly with the assembly, but they already have a foothold in the space.
So what we've, maybe let me start by saying C40's model of work and supporting cities is based on technical assistance.
Okay.
So by understanding what needs does a city have and how can we provide the technical assistance that's needed here. And like I said earlier, the aim of the inclusive climate action work is to ensure that the people whose voices are underrepresented but who are highly impacted by climate action are part of decision-making processes. And so that's what we're doing, creating the space to allow informal waste workers to be part of waste management decision-making processes. And this looks, in practical terms, this looks like us going through a needs assessment process to understand what are the challenges. And we found some of those challenges, which I'm sure we'll talk about.
The program is for how long?
The first phase of the program ends this month and would continue a second phase from next month.
So it's renewal each year?
I wouldn't say it's renewable each year. It's based on what the city's objectives are. So when we started, there wasn't any space to engage in dialogue. We started creating those processes. On Tuesday, we had a local conference on social dialogue where we had the city representatives, people from the Union of Informal Workers Associations, which is a part of the TUC, the Trade Unions Congress. We had informal workers present. We have people from academia. And the point of that was to engage with the city, to understand, to explore opportunities in the city, to engage in dialogue. So following that, the next phases of the city will support creating those spaces and institutionalizing those moments of dialogue, which are really the building block for any form of collaboration.
Okay. Mr. Kotey, in trying to get the informal sector to come work with the AMA under the C40 program, what are some of the challenges we've identified?
There are quite a lot of them. There are quite some challenges, some we are still trying to surmount. One of the challenges is the language barrier, because most of the informal sector players are migrants.
Okay.
And a lot of them do not understand languages spoken in the southern sector. So it's one of the challenges that we are looking at, finding ways of addressing it. And then also at both the national and then the municipal level, there's no policy for the informal waste sector. There's absolutely no policy that I know of. So we are looking at instigating policy. at both the national and the municipal level for the informal waste. At Agbeko for now, they are working, yes, and we started to recognize the informal actors, but there's no policy within the assembly that tells us that from between year 1 and 2, this is what we want to do with the informal sector. Beyond that, what are we doing for the informal sector? At which point are we migrating them probably from informality to formality? We don't have any policy on that. So these are areas that I want to look at. And then also, as a city, we don't have avenues where the informal actors can address or can go for their problems to be addressed. It's more or less on personal levels or departmental level. But there's no desk at assembly where an informal actor or informal waste collector can walk in when there are issues with maybe increase in disposal charges or harassment by former collectors, problems associated with their daily work. There's no desk that they can approach. And then also, they don't understand some of the intricacies of the assembly, and then also in relating to what they are doing. For example, just as Josephine mentioned earlier, over 44% of emissions, total emission in the city is from the waste sector. That's 44%, and that's over 1 million tons carbon dioxide equivalent. And they have to understand some of these things so that they relate to what they are doing on daily basis. Because as a city, you want to expand waste collection coverage to be able to reduce the quantity of waste that is discarded outside the former collection system. And then what households burn in their houses. We want to reduce all these quantities because that's what contributes to greenhouse gases or precursors of greenhouse gases. And they don't understand. Mm-hmm. To them, it's survival. Yes. They have to collect waste, collect their money, provide food for their families on daily basis. So these are things that we have to let them understand, as well as the health and safety aspects of the work that they are doing. And in communicating this to them is quite challenging because of the language barrier and some other things.
Yeah. Josephine, why should the ordinary informal waste, let's even call them, let's focus on the pickers. Why should they care about emissions reduction and everything?
That's a great question, very practical. I think that at the end of the day, whether we like it or not, climate change is here. We've also established, science has helped us establish that emissions, greenhouse gas emissions are one of the leading causes of global warming, of the climate change we see, etc. The impact of climate change in our communities, the impact is dire. Yeah. Things around prolonged droughts causing food insecurity in places, leading to increase in prices of foodstuff, things around devastating floods, which we've witnessed, unfortunately, so many times here in Accra. We've seen loss of lives and property. We've seen our coastline receding because of climate change as well. Communities at the coast losing their lives and properties, etc. So these are practical implications of climate change. I'd also add the health implications, so flooding and water issues leading to waterborne diseases in our communities we've experienced here in Accra. And so if we begin to think of emissions not only as an abstract scientific concept, and we look at it as what impact it creates, then I think the waste picker would be interested in understanding that, actually, this work that I do supports the city to deliver its emission reduction goals, and also helps me create a job for myself, create a job for others, but also helps in pushing recycling efforts, really advancing recycling efforts here in the city. So I think if we begin to look at climate change in a more practical, more personal terms, then people would begin to see what's happening and the impact of these things in our lives.
I mean, a continuation of that, I would then want you to tell us what the expected outcomes of C40 cities program, the Inclusive Climate Action Program. What are we to expect, especially as you are coming to the end of the first round, I suppose? Yeah.
Thanks for that question. So one of the key outcomes we are looking at is making the case for inclusion in this case of informal waste workers. Why is this important? Why should informal waste workers be included? And we've established, or we've been advocating and campaigning over the last 2 years, both within the city, the AMA, but also with various stakeholders. The reason for this, the reason being that informal workers contribute so much to waste management here in the city. Yeah. Their work also creates opportunities for emission reduction. Like I said earlier, they divert waste from landfill, they collect the waste in our communities, our streets are cleaner, etc. And because of their work, even in especially informal settlements, the city would tell you that waste burning has reduced drastically with the onset of informal waste collection activities. So these are important things, and the work we're doing is helping to make that case for why this is important. Moving to the more practical areas, informal waste workers, by virtue of the work that they do, are supporting us to get cleaner air, because now we don't burn waste anymore, so there's cleaner air. Because of that, we have better health and better health outcomes. We have cleaner communities. The interesting thing is also that with this kind of collaboration and partnership, we're able to create a more solidified waste management value chain system. So we know that once we collect waste in our communities, they can be recycled, organic waste can be composted for urban greenery, etc. So there's a whole value chain to that, and those are some of the things that we're aiming to achieve. The second thing is also to mainstream inclusive climate action, and by this I mean to ensure that when the city, anytime the city thinks about climate change and climate action, we already start thinking also of who are the people whose voices are underrepresented. How can we develop climate plans or climate action plans in ways that are inclusive of their experiences, their challenges? And this goes beyond even informal workers and informal sector workers generally. It could include women, children, people with different abilities, or people that we say are disabled, and just generally people who are marginalized. Mainstreaming climate action means that every time we begin thinking of climate action and implementing climate action, we're thinking, who does this work impact? How do we create solutions? How do we do this work in a way to create solutions to the challenges that they face? And then ultimately, to help build climate resilience for these people.
Okay, Mr. Kotey, I can imagine how tasking bringing all these stakeholders together has been. Who are the various stakeholders you've had to deal with under this program?
Thank you very much.
And how have they cooperated?
In fact, we've engaged research institutions in academia,
okay.
Our former waste sector, our former waste service providers, and then some not-for-profit organizations, some community-based organizations, a whole lot of stakeholders.
Has it been easy because you are coming from the angle of AMA?
It hasn't been quite easy because expectations vary from stakeholder to stakeholder.
Yeah.
And the fact is, climate change applies to almost everyone.
Yeah.
However remote we see climate change is real. So these are some of the things that you have to let stakeholders understand. You have to let them how their activities relate to climate change, because at times it hasn't been quite easy. In fact, even with public institutions, it hasn't been quite easy bringing them to the table because of expectations and then the focus of what they are doing. But we are making some headway. Yeah.
Josephine, are there opportunities for other cities to get involved? Because as you may have gathered from the Ghana situation, the flooding, the filth in our environment is not exclusive to Accra. Are there opportunities for Kumasi, Tema, Takoradi, all the other major cities to be part of such a program?
So C40 is a network of mayors or a network of cities. We currently have about 97 to 100 cities and mayors within our network. So the idea of extending to other cities is not far-fetched. I think what's helpful is realizing or identifying that these are also challenges within those cities, and these are challenges that the city leadership has also identified and is taking action on. We've had conversations, internal conversations around the possibility of replicating this work that we're doing and the outcomes we're seeing in cities where it would be relevant for their purposes. So I don't doubt that this is possible in a not too far future. I don't doubt that this is possible in some of our cities in Accra.
And if any mayor was interested, how would they approach the C40's cities program?
Yeah, I mean, I probably invite them to visit the AMA, because the AMA is like the
model city.
Exactly, the AMA is a model city. Approach the AMA to have conversations on how the city, Mr. Kotey mentioned earlier, how they got into the C40 network. So yeah, AMA would be able to share how they've become a part of the C40 cities network, and then higher conversations can happen from there.
I want us to talk a little bit about greenhouse gas emissions and its reduction in Ghana generally. And what are some of the things we have to do as citizens? On Trash Talk, we make it a point to educate everybody. We are all involved in this climate green space. And so it serves as a platform for education. How are people going to, in practical terms, help in contributing to the mitigating activities in greenhouse gas emissions?
Thanks a lot for this question and for making it so practical to our lived experiences. I'll take this from two angles, one from a personal, individual, maybe family angle, and then another from a business angle. So in the first instance, I think we each have a responsibility to ourselves, to our families, to our communities, to keep our environments clean.
Yes.
Things as simple as segregating our wastes, plastic, organic wastes, paper wastes, etc. We know that there's a lot of opportunities for plastic waste recycling, and so the pure water rubbers, the PETs, and different types of plastic. One of the very easy things we can do as individuals is to ensure that we're not disposing of our plastic. We're keeping them for the people that buy, or you can even identify recycling companies locally and then go hand it off to them. There are waste management companies who also have recycling business models, so they come to our communities and they collect some of this trash. When Mr. Kotey speaks, I'm hoping that he can speak about some of the city's plans to educate communities on source separation. But back to this, so segregating our waste is one of those. I know that some people have community gardens, community gardens and home gardens. One of the easiest ways to fertilize our soils is by using compost. And there are very easy to do it yourself ways to create your own compost from organic waste. Organic waste being, if you think about food waste, those are things that you can use at home domestically for your organic waste to enrich your soil for your gardens, your tomatoes, your carrots, your green pepper, etc. The third thing on a personal level is for us all to make it a point to avoid single-use plastics. So I usually would walk about with a bottle in my bag, and I'm always refilling the bottle. That makes me avoid using, say, 5 water bottles in a day. And if I look at it in a month, that's about 150 bottles. So on an individual scale, it may seem small, but on a community scale, that's a lot of plastic bottle that we're all avoiding. And reusing things, reusing bags, reusing things also helps. at the business scale, for business entrepreneurs and business people, corporate people, what I would say is there's a whole room of opportunity to think of your business setup in a very positive environment way. So this includes using energy efficient gadgets. It also includes using, as much as you can, energy efficient buildings. So buildings that allow for natural light to enter your building, so you don't necessarily have to use the electricity every time. Also prioritizing waste management in your organization. So you can imagine that an entire organization produces waste because there are several people working there. So if that organization has a policy in place to segregate waste, plastic, paper, organic, and they're recycling, they're processing this waste into other products, that's an amazing, yes, very significant opportunity that businesses can take. So, yeah.
Thank you. We want to take a quick break. When we return, we'll take the parting words of our guest. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Trash Talk. Today we are talking about Inclusive Climate Action Program focused on Accra Metropolitan Assembly and also the C40 Cities Inclusive Climate Action Program. And it's been an interesting educative time with Josephine and Mr. Kotey. And I want to take your closing remarks. I'll start from Mr. Kotey. From the Accra Metropolitan Assembly, now a model city for other cities and other mayors to study from, tell us a bit about what the Assembly has benefited from the program and what we should expect in future.
Thank you very much. As far as C40 is concerned, as I mentioned in my opening statement, C40 has supported the city in developing a climate action plan. And earlier C40 supported the city in developing the city's greenhouse gas inventory. And that was how come we got to know that the waste sector is contributing so much to greenhouse emission. Previously, we don't have this data. So I must express my gratitude to C40 for assisting the city in doing this. The C40 also assisted the city to come out with a waste characterization study, because that's the basis of every intervention in the waste sector. If you don't know the composition of your waste, you'll not be able to come up with interventions. So based on that, AMA very soon will commence a pilot source separation in some selected communities, Jamestown, Choco, and some other low-income communities. So I would like to use the medium to appeal to constituents of those communities to take part in that exercise when we commence. In fact, greenhouse emission from the waste sector is quite enormous. One of the areas where the emission is quite huge is incineration and then open burning. Incineration and open burning contributes 15% of greenhouse gas emission in Accra. So assuming we are able to prevent about 2,000 households from engaging in open burning, we can imagine the reduction in black carbon that the city could achieve. And black carbons are the precursors of greenhouse gases. And then also 53% of our waste is organic. And we have a couple of composting facilities in and outside Accra. And the efficiency of those plants have been affected because we are not doing source separation. For example, if we take Agbeko receives mixed waste. So some resources have to be spent to separate the waste into several fractions to be able to get the organic component for composting. These are areas where households can help. If you start the source separation and you are doing it well, there will be no need for ARICOP or ACAP to do further separation at their plant to separate into several fractions to get the organics. So these are areas where households can help. And once again, I would like to use Metro TV to appeal to our constituents to help in this little intervention, especially making our waste available to our accredited service providers so that it will be properly collected and then properly disposed of. In fact, those junkies that we've been using who come to our houses with sacks and then collect waste, dump them on the street side, is not helping anybody. It makes collection services much more expensive, and the city has to channel resources in collecting waste that have been disposed outside the collection system because households made those waste available to persons who are not required to collect waste.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Kotey. Josephine, you give us a short closing, and let us be educative as usual. You've educated us so much, and perhaps one of these fine days, when your project has come to a closure, we may have to call you back.
That would be excellent. I'd welcome that opportunity to speak with you again. My closing words will be that inclusive climate action is a chance to ensure that the people who are often represented by who are at the front lines of climate change receive the positive impacts of our climate action work. We have established already that waste causes about 44% of all greenhouse gas emissions here in the city of Accra. We've also established that informal workers, even in some reports, they are reported to contribute to about 40 to 45% of waste service delivery here in the city, already showing the significance of their contributions. Unfortunately, informal waste workers work in very precarious conditions where there's limited social security, limited health care, minimum wages, they face price exploitations, their work has been criminalized, in many areas. It is time that the city and the region of Greater Accra itself actually begins to look at the contribution of these informal waste workers, how they are helping to clean our communities, how they are helping to promote cleaner air, better health systems, better health in our communities, etc. This is an opportunity to ensure that we're embedding the voices of informal waste workers in our decision-making, in our planning, etc. The city of Accra has been a brilliant starter to that and have started creating the space for a lot of this dialogue to happen, a lot of this engagements to have it happen, which has led to us seeing really positive outcomes. There are also areas around infrastructural developments that we're hoping that the city or the financiers, etc., will begin to also look at to create infrastructural systems that enable informal waste workers to work under protected conditions and to be able to earn living wages. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kotey. Thank you, Ms. Agbeko. And hope that the program will achieve its expected outcomes. I hope today you have learned something. It looks as if with every program on Trash Talk, waste segregation resurfaces. We will see you next time on Trash Talk as we talk about everything environmental sanitation. See you.